So, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. Welcome to this webinar out of a series being organized by the Commonwealth Secretariat and the Digital Agri Hub based at the University of Wageningen in collaboration with AGRA, Farmerline, and the GIZ DIASCA program initiative. And DIASCA stands for Digital Integration of Agri-Supply Chains Alliance. So this is the fourth webinar we're having in the series, and we've been having this webinar on a Friday afternoon, as well as having an e-conversation during the week. And I was just commenting to the presenters before that it's been good to see more interactions happening on the e-conversations, especially since yesterday and this morning. So we've got a lot of speakers today. As you can see from on the screen, we have Marvin, Tuntufie, we have Jeremy, Michel, Gregorio, and Riyadh from these countries that you can see listed on the left. So we have Belize, Ghana, Malawi, Bangladesh, Laos, and Sri Lanka. And I'm going to be going to go through the speakers in the order from west to east as we go through the presentations. But let me just remind you a few things. I think by now the etiquette, well, obviously, when you're interacting, please interact with in the chat, as well as if there's any question at any time when we get to the discussions, raise your hand. But by all means, do insert your questions in the chat. Now, I'll just remind you of what we've done so far in the last few weeks. We've had, the whole conversation is about digital public infrastructure. In the first week, we had the concept of DPI that was presented to us, where we saw that DPI is a way of getting people to unlock sort of establish the connections between the systems that were previously residing in silos, and it's about getting these building blocks for public benefit. We had last week Ben Adam presented this concept of NAgDI that has been developed by the Commonwealth Secretariat, and where again the key message there is that it's not just about the technology, but it goes beyond the technology into other aspects that have to be looked at, namely policies and principles, governance and administration of this, what we're referring to as the infrastructure. So the infrastructure is not about just technologies and systems, but it also includes the consideration of marketing and the business model, as well as differentiating between different types of data, as content data and user data. So that's what Ben presented last week, and we'll be putting links in the chat about these different definitions and links to the resources. So just to remind you, so the vision of NAgDI by the Commonwealth is that it's to create the space to be able to connect the existing systems, help countries build up on what is already existing. So we're not coming in with a new system or technology. We're saying we want you to have the space to be able to discuss how you can better bring these different systems together. I'm not going to go through all the different text on the screen, but the idea is that if you are able to connect first of all at the country level, that will now enable you to better establish connectivity or connections between countries and across regions, and eventually leading to more data exchange and eventually trade in agriculture between these different countries. So what Ben presented last time, which is what is going to be in the policy guide that we're going to be releasing next week, is how NAgDI can be seen as an investment project. So there's a whole set of a structure of how NAgDI can be seen as an investment project by a government involving all the different stakeholders, and basically it's structured into the goals, the objectives, and eventually 64 clusters of activities that need to be carried out in terms of the implementation of NAgDI. And what the policy guide also describes is what we have proposed as a figurative 5-year implementation plan. Sorry, implementation guide, not a plan. We're not telling you how to go about doing it or what you have to do specifically. We are giving you the whole list of the 64 types of activities that have to be carried out in a proposed timeline. And what is interesting in here is that we're saying that the technology doesn't come first. There's a lot of planning and conversations to be had before you get to actual design and implementation of the technologies. And we'll be sharing links to these resources, but obviously these will also be in the policy guide that will be launched next Thursday. So with this in mind, today what we propose is that we've been going deeper into examples of how has DPI been implemented in different countries. And we announced it last week that we have this lineup of our speakers today. Since we don't have a lot of time within the 1 hour, we will start, as I mentioned, we will start off with Greg from Belize. And I will ask each one of you, the speakers, to spend about 3 minutes, if possible, to give us a quick overview of who you are, how have you been implementing DPI or part of DPI in your context, in your country, and which one which one would you like to highlight in terms of the implementation? So with these 6 speakers now, that will probably take us at least 20-25 minutes to get an overview of what is involved in terms of implementation at country level, and then we'll come back and see what are the other ways we can explore this. So Ben, I'll put you on the spot later to kind of look for these commonalities between these different presenters. So without much further ado, so I'll leave the floor to Greg. If he can, while he can start sharing his screen. Greg is a policy analyst and statistician at the Ministry of Agriculture in Belize, and he's been the architect behind what is called the Belize Agricultural Information Management System. So over to you, Gregorio. I think I should stop sharing my screen. Okay, Greg, over to you. You're muted, and the picture doesn't seem to be moving. Okay. You're still muted?
Something is happening. Okay.
So do we move to the next country?
I think.
Yeah, okay. So let's move to Marvin, who is in Ghana at the moment. So we're moving from west towards east. Go ahead, Marvin.
All right. Yes. I hope I'm audible.
Yep. Great.
Yeah, all good. Right.
Great.
Okay, perfect. So thanks for having me. It's truly a privilege to be part of the ongoing discussions. And I think particularly being part of the NAgDI write-up as well. I think it's been remarkable seeing how far this has come. I represent Farmerline, a social enterprise headquartered in Ghana. At Farmerline, digital public infrastructure isn't just a concept. It's at the heart of the journey that seemed almost impossible at the beginning. So for today, I'll be sharing 2 major successes that we've been able to achieve as a company, looking at how we've been able to integrate a farmer registry on top of a layer of payment verification, as well as one other exciting example that I will be sharing with regards to work we've done in Benin. So I'll start first of all with the first example, being the open finance module. So to start off with, I'd like to say that one of the biggest challenges we've seen in agriculture is farmers being able to access finance. And for that reason, we came up with an idea that the traditional way that banks usually approach financing is risk averse, meaning that they usually would want to know things such as your repayment history. They would like to have an idea of your production data, whether or not you're a verified identity in the first place. When we came up with Open Finance, the idea was that we wanted to simply create a platform that could make agricultural finance as open and verifiable as mobile money. We call it Open Finance for a reason. it represents an open data-driven approach to agricultural financing. So what we do here is that, first of all, we have the farmer registry that is actually taking from our systems. And in this case, it's the Mesh Data platform that has been a proprietary system that we've used over the past 13 years to reach farmers across different demographics. Now, the farm data, production records, transaction history all become part of a secure database that is plugged into our National Identification Authority system that offers a first layer of identification. So what happens is that it's not just about the records of the farmers. We are able to quickly know whether or not these identities of the farmers are verifiable. And in so doing, what it means is that banks can also tap into this information to now actually offer services in terms of financing, because we've moved away from that approach where a farmer will be required to have some bit of collateral whatsoever. And we know that this is not really the case, especially in agriculture. The reason is that we have smallholder farmers that seem not to have an idea of what their production data would look like. We could have instances where, because of bad rainfall patterns, this could equally create such issues as we have it. I'll pause here and then move on to the next topic, which is one of my favorite, actually. This was a project that we had running for about 3 years. So the second example is pretty much tailored towards market information systems. And what this means is that one of the biggest challenges we've seen across West Africa is that there's a lack of timely and reliable market data. So for both farmers and as well as market actors, we see daily selling decisions and that of governments always trying to get ideas with regards to fair pricing, trade policies, and too often we see farmers rely on word of mouth or middlemen for such information. So between 2018 and 2021, we spearheaded an initiative in Benin where we could change that story. So in partnership with FUPRO, that is their Federation for Producers, as well as ACMA, we set out to create a system that connects that entire agricultural value chain. So from crops to warehouses to processors to transporters, all in a continuous flow. Now, the goal was very simple: to make market information possible and transparent. So we built a platform that worked even in the most remote communities, being a layer of the proprietary service we already offer in terms of the farmer identification. So subscribers could actually put in a subscription to gain information regarding certain commodities. And this was the more sustainable approach, because we were able to constantly ensure that this platform was active based on such subscription level. We had farmers, we had market actors like warehouse leaders, we had cooperative leaders, even the government, individuals in different departments, all looking for specific commodities in order to make such trade policies on. And I will say for a fact that I believe that this for me houses the true spirit of what we have always thought would be the approach in having to ensure that data is always being shared, because the future we are moving towards is to ensure that efforts are not disconnected. And we see that not just the disconnection part, but also in aspects of having to save money. Because you imagine having to go to a country like Benin, a Ghanaian-owned company that has no idea of the demographic and has to go from scratch, having to profile farmers all together from scratch. And we've seen such improvements. And I think that is what I would like to share concerning some of the two major successes we've been able to achieve using such systems. Yeah, over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Marvin. Hopefully, what you've just described is also available, whether as it has been documented somewhere, it can be shared with us and with the group, because I think I can see what you presented is more from the business end. How is it that you're able to provide services more from the business end? And if I can remind people, your farmer line is from the private sector, so it's to get this perspective from you. Thank you very much, Marvin. I see Gregorio had some problems before, but I saw his slides come up before. Gregorio, are you with us again?
Yes, my apologies. My apologies. We've been having some weather issues here in Belize, so I disconnected a bit. But I actually have my presentation, and I wanted to speak regarding the farmer ID system that we're using in Belize. Our system is basically I'm not sure if you're able to see my screen.
Not yet.
Okay.
We saw it before.
Yeah, it's connecting.
Right.
Yeah, so as mentioned at the ministry, my name is Gregorio Canto. I am actually the policy analyst at the Ministry of Agriculture, Food Security, and Enterprise in Belize. We actually manage the Belize Agriculture Information Management System, and as a part of this work that we're doing is we're actually have a national farmer registry. And the reason we're creating the registry is because we in Belize we lack a national ID or a national identification system. So we went ahead and actually created our own national farmer registry. So Belize is divided into 6 districts. So if you could see on the screen, we have our first number is representing the district where the farmer is located, and the other 8-digit alphanumerical value is just
Gregorio,
generated randomly.
Sorry, we don't see your second slide. I can only still see the first one only. Okay, yeah.
Okay.
Okay,
Yeah.
good.
So as I mentioned in the ID system, we have our country divided into 6 districts. So we went ahead, and if a farmer is from District 1, we would give him or her a 1 with a 8-digit alphanumeric value. And this is basically applicable to the farmer and the farm registry. Once we create these unique IDs, we would go ahead and have have created a national identification system for the farmers in Belize. And the good thing about it is we avoid the duplication. We could link any system. So currently we're working, the government is working on a national identification system for the entire country. So we're linking our farmer ID system with that national ID, as well as linking it to our banking system, because we're also have projects and programs within the ministry with the World Bank, with the IDB, with different projects that are also linked via the farmer ID. So we're finding out that the flow of data is much more easier when we're using the system. So the farmer ID links to the farm, it links to the commodities, it links all the way down to surveys and field data collection that we're doing with our extension officers in the field. So the uniqueness of the ID is very important. So because it's a primary key for us to link all the other databases in the country, as well as within the Ministry of Agriculture here in Belize. So basically, it's a ID that is able to locate where the farmer is and all the farms, all his farm activities, and everything that that particular farmer has at that given point in time. So all of this is collected using our digital infrastructure, and I think it's a very a good system. It shows how we've been working on it since 2018, and we've had almost no issues. So as you could see on the screen, we could even geotag a location where the farmer is, where his farm is, all the way down to the detail if he has aquaculture, corn, or maize, beans, or whatever commodity he has in his field, all because we have created that unique ID. So we're able to tag and track back every aspect of that farmer and farm activity that is happening. And in a snapshot, that is basically what we've created. We went ahead and created our own ID system so that we could actually accommodate the national ID system. So we're now seeing that because we have this in place, we're able to connect with different databases or different ID systems across the country. And I guess that would make it in a very short snapshot of what we're doing.
Yeah, thank you very much, Gregorio. Yeah, so what we understand is that you have now provided a case where the agricultural sector has established its own set of registries while waiting for the national ID service to be implemented. But that is already providing you with the foundation that you need in terms of farmer registries and farm registries as well in terms of building up on it, building of services.
Yes.
Excellent. Right. Okay. Ben, you wanted to intervene quickly on that?
Just quick question for Greg. You know, the issue that we have in larger countries is where multiple entities are doing this, right? Multiple private sector entities are building farmer registries without talking to each other. Do you have the same situation in Belize, or is only the ministry that is rolling this out?
No, we do have other entities that have that are working, like associations, groups, but we have also linked our main database. So when they do any type of registry on their system, they also have to recognize that this is the national database that they need to link to. So that farmer is linked with our ID system as well, through memorandum of understandings and different types of agreements. But that is already implemented.
So again, we're hearing that it's not all about technology, it's about MOUs and institutions collaborating and having a system to work together. All right,
yes,
so now
that is the only way it works, actually.
All right, so now going from a farmer, let's say from an agriculture sector-based farmer registry, we'll move to Malawi, where Tuntufia will talk to us a little bit about the establishment of the national ID system in Malawi. Go ahead, the floor is yours, Tuntufia.
All right, thank you very much. Hi, everyone. My name is Tuntufia Daugira, and I work with UNDP Malawi as a digital governance analyst. And in our project, which is called Inclusive Digital Transformation for Malawi, we are supporting the National Registration Bureau, which is responsible for registering Malawians both from birth to death. And in this one, in the ID, so the National Registration System project, we have so far registered over 98% of Malawians, and that's 16 years and above. And this has offered a robust foundation for digital identity for Malawi, which now is currently linked to over 28 systems from various institutions, both in private sector as well as government ministries and departments and agencies. So today, I want to share two things. The first one is our support through the National Registration Bureau to the agriculture sector. So the Ministry of Agriculture has a program called Affordable Inputs Program, which is a program for smallholder farmers for subsidy of inputs. And in this one, they have linked their system to the national ID, where farmers use the national ID to register. And now there are, I think, about 1.4 million farmers that have been registered using the national ID. And there are also works in progress where they would want to include facial recognition for verification. And one of the reasons for this is to ensure that identification and verification is secure. There has been cases, especially in the rural communities, where farmers or village heads rather would collect IDs, the national IDs from the communities, and have access to the inputs, the subsidized inputs, and maybe misuse or sell or whatever. So because of this, we try to make the process of identification and verification a bit secure to avoid the fraud. So facial recognition has been is currently in the pipelines to ensure that the rightful beneficiaries have access to these inputs. The second thing that I wanted to share, I know I'd said that I don't have a presentation, but I have a slide that I want to share. I feel like it will be easier to understand. I hope you can see it. I'm sharing. Are you able to see the slide?
Not yet.
But I will be talking while I am sharing. So this is about an innovative solution that the NRB is working on. And this is a digitally signed QR code. So it's part of the identity system. One, to offer alternative identification. Secondly, is also to offer both online and offline verification, especially in the areas where there is limited connectivity. I hope you're able to see it now.
Yes, yes.
Okay, so I'm only going to explain there are 3 slides on this one. So just for your understanding. The digitally signed QR code is a secure QR code that can only be accessed by those that have the right devices and given or offered by the NRB. And this QR code has the citizen details, their ID number, their full names, their biography in general, their biographical data. And then there is also the biometric data, which is the fingerprint and the face features that are embedded in the QR code. And it is signed by NRB to ensure that it's secure in its use. Why the QR code was made, first of all, is to ensure that, as I mentioned, that there is need for multiple credentials, because there were issues where some people, after being registered, would not have their ID and therefore would not be able to use it. A case in point would be the elections. We had our general elections in September, and what this QR code did for during that time was for those that did not have their IDs, whether it was lost, stolen, or broken, they would use the QR code to be identified. And so these are the multiple credentials that the NRB is looking at, so that a person or citizen does not only rely on their national ID card. So it offers both offline and online verification, like I mentioned, to cater for those in the rural areas with limited connectivity. And these are just the models of identification. There's a basic, which is 1-to-1, to verify that if, for example, an ID is scanned and the national ID system responds with a yes or no. And then there is a second, which is intermediate verification, where there is a biometric, a 1-to-1 biometric match, and then there is the advanced verification. So just to quickly explain how the verification works, once an ID has been provided, the national ID that we have is on the card is a digital ID, because it has a QR code as well as a chip. So on the QR code, once it's scanned, so in this case, either the QR code, digitally signed QR code, or the ID, once it's scanned, the verification can either be through a fingerprint or biometric. And if it's a sorry, not biometric, but face biometric. So if it's a face biometric, there is a liveness check that's conducted to ensure that there is no tampering with or playing any tricks on the system, whether to use like a picture or dead. This is the worst case when you use a dead person. Right. So just to make sure that it's a liveness check, while you're verifying, a person has to move. And then there is the fingerprint verification. So once that's verified, you're good to go. So basically, that's how it works. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Tuntufi. So basically, you're doing everything to build the trust in the system or the identification process. And what you're doing now is, so how is the agricultural sector interacting with you? Maybe that's something we'll address. Think about it later on, and we can come back to you in terms of having built this trustworthy system. How does the agricultural sector now react to what you have done, and how they engaging with you on the, to be able to build on this for the agricultural sector? But keep that as a question in mind for when we'll come back to you in a moment. All right, let's move to the next speaker. We have Riyadh from Bangladesh, who has been involved with several organizations, A2I and the Bangladesh Agricultural Research Council. Riyadh, I don't see you. Are you there?
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you, right? We can't see. I can't see you, but go ahead. If you can share.
Yes, I'm sharing my screen.
Right. Yep, great. Excellent. Good.
Hello, everyone. I'm Riyadh Mashir-Atul. I work as a junior consultant for A2I, and I'm also serving as a contributor for the crop zoning information system under Bangladesh Agriculture Research Council. And today I'll be talking about data standardization and interoperability of agro data ecosystem, an initiative that we took from our BARC. So in BARC, we have a system which is crop zoning, or the Khamari app, which has information about all sorts of crops and their varieties, as well as the pests or the fertilizers, and also the weather data. But the problem that we face is that the data is not always real time. We have to work with historical data, and in order to provide the best agriculture guidance and suggestions for the farmers, we need to work with real time data. And the requirements that we see, that the data requirements that we have, the formats of those data are never really in the correct format that is usable. So in that context, we wanted to expand our data sets and make sure that all the data that we require are easily available. So if we look in the context of DPI, we in Bangladesh already have our national ID system, and the payment system is pretty much universal. So we kind of realized that if we enable the data layer of agriculture, we will be able to enable different use cases for our farmers. And in that way, we can actually use the national ID to transform our farmer ID into a serviceable ID. So in that context, for the under the leadership of Ministry of Agriculture and by the support of Ministry of Livestock and Cabinet Division, we have prepared a 24 organization pool and 17 private pool to work together and identify the data requirements for the agriculture sector in Bangladesh. In that way, we would be able to enable the agriculture ecosystem for different services relating to irrigation, weather, crop, market, soil, breeds, and so on. So during our journey, we have identified 34 data registries, and we have worked together to identify the data fields in those exact registries. As you can see here, we have 80 different data field requirements for the farmers, for crops, and so on. So the context is by enabling the data registries, we would be able to provide different use cases for the farmers, such as crop management or pesticide management, as well as using finance and other services. We would be able to provide agriculture investments and so on. By enabling this, we aim to provide the 25 million farmer families and 1.6 million fishermen with the service that they require. Thank you so much. This is from my side.
Great. Thank you very much, Riyad. So what I understand is that you got these 24 organizations together in the 17 private sector organizations to think about what are the data sets that you need to be shared across each one of them, or is it that you need them to be stored so that they're shareable? Yeah. In fact, we actually discussed both of the angles. What data fields that we required, how we can use different data, what fields are required in other sectors. For example, for farming, we need weather data and also land data, and they vary from location to location. So by creating relations between different data, we would be using different sets of data to enable such use cases, as well as also think about how they can be stored and how they can be shared between different entities. Right. So that means you've thought of all the different use cases for the data by each other, and then agreed on what are the kind of, well, I'm not saying minimum, but what is the desirable data sets that should be stored so that it can be used by all these different partners. Just can you tell us whether this is this work that you've done, the data, the models of data storage, are these available for other countries to use or to learn from or to adopt? Of course. In fact,
In fact, I'm willing to share our data design, the data design that we have prepared for agriculture. It's the data sets are still under construction, so definitely we would need suggestions from different angles on how they can be improved. So I'll share the link with this with the chat panel. So I hope everyone will be able to see it. Thank you.
Excellent. Yeah, I think Omar had a question. Maybe I'll allow Omar to quickly come in and put his question to you. You need to unmute yourself, Omar. Okay, Omar, if you, I don't know, you're not getting through. I can't see you. You're not unmuted yet. So if you can't get through, please type your question in the chat, and we'll come back to you. Okay. All right. Let's move to the final two speakers, and we talked about moving from west to east. So here we have cases of implementation in Laos and Sri Lanka being facilitated by the same group or organization of Open SPP. So we have two representatives from this group that are with us today. I'm not sure who's going to talk first, but it's Jérémy Josselin and Michel Moshiro, who will, you have the floor to explain to us a bit what you have done and in terms of the implementation of DPI in these countries. Go ahead.
Yes. Thank you very much. I'll start and then Michel will continue. So basically, OpenSPP is, so we're slightly different from the other presenters, right? OpenSPP is a digital public good. It's a non-profit organization that provide the technology to be able to build farmer registries. And so we started with other type of registries, with management information system, social registries, and now a big focus of what we're doing is farmer registries. I wanted to talk a little bit about this before Michel is going to talk more about the country work, because I think there's been quite a lot of discussion in through the different channels around this about the need and the use of the farmer registry. The way we see the farmer registry in the whole ecosystem, it's like a source of data that enable use cases, right? So it's not something that does the use cases, but more something that is an enabling system, right? So the idea is that in the registry, you would get the farmer information, the group of farmers. We actually work a lot at the group of farmers level, also villages, information about what they are farming, their farming activities, and so this is to enable different use cases. And I think earlier we had presenters that were talking about financial services that are using the information about the farmer registry. So this is the way we see the farmer registry, where it allows to prove some information about the farmers who usually don't have that many assets that they can use for having loans, right? So it can be used for finance, it can be used for alerting, for anticipatory action, for reporting. One thing that is quite important also, and we're talking a lot about smallholder farmers and making them visible. And I think a farmer registry is a good way, because if you have details about all the farmers and not just the big ones that are visible, that you always see, having details about everyone and even the small ones, it makes them more visible. And so then you can take better decision as a policy maker, right? And then it can be used also after to provide other services, making sure people have access to quality input, seeds, fertilizers, right? And things we're talking with some countries also is how does a farmer registry can be used as a base to give access to the farmers to a wider market, right? And not just selling to the small buyers that is locally and that buys them at a cheap price, right? So they maybe get and negotiate bigger prices. And also get access to subsidies, and for the government to also be able to better shape programs and target the diversity, because I think from a personal point of view, I think diversity is important and reliance. And I think we saw this with COVID, that this was important. All these smallholder farmers that kind of were able to support the local ecosystem. And I think this is the idea also is for this system, not to just show the big ones, but also to provide for support for the small one. And so the idea of this and what we're doing is a lot of interoperability. And I would love to see what Marvin, forgot his name, sorry, the previous speaker was saying about like interoperability. We do a lot of work around interoperability with other systems, with identity, with CRVS, with all of it, because I think we believe that it's important to have this data exchanged and updated and when it's needed. So I think, and this is really at the core of the DPI. So this is where we connect to a lot of different systems. And I'll leave it to Michel to continue quickly on the different projects.
Yes, thank you, Jeremy, and very nice to meet everyone, and also to have heard the presentations from the previous speakers, because I think a lot of what the other people on this call are doing really resonate with us, right? I think we integrate a lot of the different approaches that they have mentioned, and definitely when we piloted the solution in Laos and in Sri Lanka, we've used a number of those approaches, right? So to maybe bring it down to what we've done exactly and how we've approached this application of a farmer registry at a national level. First of all, there are pilots, so they have not been yet scaled up at national level, although in both countries they are discussing how to do it. Of course, I think as most of you in this call will be working with governments, you know how long it takes to get things approved. And although you've tested and proven that it can work, there's a whole policy game and budgeting game that comes into place, which of course follows a different political cycle. And that's beyond, let's say, what we can do in terms of technology, right? I also had it was very interesting to see also the conversations in the different groups prior to this call and on DPI also. What we do is engraved into DPI, which I think you've talked about before, but the way we approach it is from a very pragmatic setup, right? Which means that we know, and OpenSPP was really created to target lower and middle income countries, right? So countries that have usually a lack of resources or low capacity, let's say, in terms of technology. Not that they don't have people doing the technology, just that sometimes the resources in terms of financial resources are not there to invest in those, and there are many other pressing needs, right? So the way we saw this is that even though you may not have digital ID systems, national ID systems, I think a colleague from Belize mentioned that they started the farmer identity system without waiting for the national ID, or digital payments like in many other countries. This should not be a reason to stop you from starting, right? And I think in both Sri Lanka and Laos, what we've done was responding to concrete use cases, to concrete needs that the governments had. In Sri Lanka, it was about one of the most important subsidy programs in agriculture run by the Ministry of Agriculture, for which the government has been under extreme pressure because there's a lot of leakages in terms of how farmers access the subsidies, how much of the subsidies actually get to the right farmers in each of the crop cycles, and the whole compliance and verification once the subsidies have been given of as the farmer actually really bought the fertilizer and used it in a correct way, right? So, but because Sri Lanka has also already made a pledge to become a DPI first type of country, meaning that they are looking at interoperability across their different government systems, they didn't want to just build a simple tracking system, a registry and distribution system, right? The fact was that we needed to bring under a common platform two different things that are quite key for the program. One is the farmer registry, the people that actually need to get access to the subsidies in each crop cycle, and then the distributor network that is also doing it, right? And of course, enabling it to be able to track and monitor how things are being shared. But the main key behind this was really to be able to leverage that input of data so that it can connect to more systems in the agricultural sectors, whether it's seed registries, whether it's insurance for farmers in many places, whether it's access to resilient agricultural schemes, GIS integration, things like this, and beyond, right? I think we were very interested to hear indeed Riyadh from Bangladesh as to how they're leveraging maybe access to markets, but also Marvin in terms of how this can provide for financial inclusion, right? And how you can, a farmer could essentially prove his production history in order to access certain types of loans. And here we're talking about smallholder farmers that are often isolated or disconsidered, right, from the traditional financial system. So data enablement is what we're after here, right? And how we can leverage this for other services to tap into and recognize this, right? And I think this is when the government takes action to do something like this, to be able to build those registries with that capacity to interoperate and share data across different systems is very important. Although I think Riyad explained very well the difficulty to be able to standardize that data, right? In Laos, I think we faced a more, I would say, classic development problem in terms of management of public aid, right? Multiple programs, multiple registries over the years, each program setting up its own registry, no one sharing any data, absolutely no idea of what program has done what and what's the impact of that program to be able to carry forward into the next one, right? A lot of duplication, but yet very important needs, right? Here we decided with the government that we would focus on irrigation programs, which are very important in Laos because a lot of the times they are situated in isolated or deprived areas. They are key for increasing the livelihoods of people, right? In places where usually irrigation is very difficult, accessing markets, but also for nutrition targets, right? Which is something that was not necessarily linked to, but it was a very important national objective of the government. And basically trying to see how across those programs we could at least consolidate and aggregate data at a very interesting level of agriculture, which is what they call agricultural production groups, APGs, for a simple reason that in Laos, agriculture is often communitarian, so land is shared and redistributed every year to different farmers, but it's the group that matters. And just for the government to be able to identify which group is doing what at which stage, and be able to anticipate and target public impact programs better, improve policy analysis, and prepare for the next policy cycle, right, in general, but also with resources becoming scarcer, being able to redirect things in a better way. When we did this program, a lot of questions happened, especially around identity, data sharing, and collection in those areas, right? So which is extremely costly when you have multiple enumerators going far in the field and you cannot go back every day. And so it was really how we can make sure that communities are fully empowered to share their data in a way, right? Yet respecting the communitarian practices, which, you know, I think the lady from UNDP Malawi was mentioning of the head of village having a crucial role in there, right? That was one thing, but also making sure that it can directly link and be updated even when the data is collected offline, right? So, I mean, this is where technology comes into place, right? We have online, offline data tools that we basically are able to connect, but also enabling those with smartphones to collect the data of the farmers or the agricultural production groups and update it live in the system. So essentially, giving the government a better capacity to monitor as they are planning for the implementation of new programs and the monitoring of current programs.
Thank you, Michel. Well, there were a lot of things very interesting things that both you, Jeremy, and you have mentioned, and I thought, you know, you described how you're responding to support the need of a government that they've identified, and then by doing that, you end up going to address the need of the communities themselves. So, you know, I have many questions, but I also see that Omar has many questions in the chat. And I would welcome each and every one of you to join our e-conversations so we can continue having these discussions. But Michel, the way you describe the context, what I find is that yes, we have a lot of talk of DPI around about the technologies and systems, but we haven't seen enough conversations about the contexts that people are trying to implement DPI in. And as you said, the context in Laos and Sri Lanka might be different, and maybe it might be similar to another country. So did you find that you learned something from Laos that you brought to Sri Lanka in terms of your experience? Well, think about it, and you can just reply later on. But I would say there's a question for Riyad from Umar. I think he was impressed by the fact that you brought all these organizations together, and his question was more, how were they motivated to come together? Was it something that the government had imposed on all these people to come together? Or was it driven by a request by these organizations themselves, including private sector? So that is for Riyadh to maybe to come back to us on that to explain. But meanwhile, Michelle and Jeremy, just think about, would you say that based on, I'm asking the question, but you can come back with questions, with answers later on. Having heard all the speakers before, do you see that Open SPP could have been a solution to respond to the needs that they have addressed as you went through? Yeah. So let me go back to right from the start. I'm not sure whether there was a question for Gregory or not, but Tuntufie, we had asked you to tell us a bit more about how the agricultural sector is responding to the establishment of the national ID in Malawi. Maybe just a quick 1 minute to tell us how it's going, and then maybe move to, we'll just go around. Let's start with whoever is ready to go through first. I'm sure you can all read the questions in the chat. Okay, Ben, maybe you can facilitate the question.
No. I think this is a lot, very interesting, cases from other countries. And again, we don't have the time. For Marvin, I wanted to know, with the case in Benin, I think he was saying that it was, too expensive for them to go and start profiling, so what is the advantage? What is the foundation? And then for Malawi, there are questions about livestock. That's the other one, like livestock registry, because I was in Bangalore 2 weeks ago and they are building that kind of ID for livestock as well. And Bangladesh, exactly, the question that Umar is asking. And then the openness, it appears your focus is on government, so my question is, what about the private sector? Is it that is government-owned countries or private sector is also? So those are some of my reflections and questions. So yeah, maybe we can start with Marvin and then back to.
Right. Yes. I hope you can all hear me.
Yeah.
Just checking it. Yeah, perfect. Yeah. So I think I'd like to first of all start with once again rehashing the fact that the reason why we believe that DPI do have a place in the kind of technology we build is first of all the aspects of it actually being cost effective. And the reason I made the statement about us having to first move into Benin for this project was to give a sense of an idea on what it would take if such systems are not implemented. Because what would happen is that, once again, we see the instance where we have new cooperatives, new farmer data, not necessarily existing in a whole part. We see it existing in silos. That is the word we usually use to describe how disconnected information actually looks. But if you look at the case of Benin, what I was trying to put across is that we need to make the case for DPIs, especially on the level of farmer registry. And just as we have it for the entire concept of NAgDI, we need to ensure that this is possible, because in the first instance, we see it as a case where it ensures that efforts are not duplicated. And the reason I'm saying that is, as a
30 seconds more for you.
Right. As a company, we've seen instances where different projects have allowed us to sort of retake farmer data all from scratch. And it would interest you to know that these informations actually do exist, whether or not they exist on the farmer level or with the private sector. We think that this is why it is more cost effective if such systems are in place. So we can just plug and play and then lessen the lifespan of projects, basically. Yeah.
Malawi, please.
All right. So how the agriculture sector is leveraging the existence of the national ID. The first one is what I mentioned in my presentation earlier about the affordable inputs program that the Ministry of Agriculture is currently running. It's been running for a couple of years now, where they are using the national ID to identify farmers as well as the verification. So currently what they are working on is now on the facial recognition to ensure that the rightful beneficiaries have access to these subsidized inputs. So that is the first thing. The second one, and this is a project that is in its initial stages. It's funded by EU, and that UNDP is also supporting. There are other organizations as well in the same one. It's a project in the agriculture sector, but on the part where we are supporting, as in our project, the IDT4M is supporting the UTI project within UNDP, where they're looking at creating a farmers registry and also like an e-commerce platform, as well as a digital excuse me, a digital literacy platform as well for farmers. So on all of these will be linked with a national ID system for easy identification and verification of the farmers. And there is also the NAMIS as well. That's the national.
My question for you, not to respond now, is what about other private sector registries in the country? What are they doing? But because of time, can we move to Bangladesh, please?
I think Riyadh has responded to the question in terms of the motivation in the chat. But definitely Riyadh will be sharing the URL to their GitHub. Yeah. So that will be interesting.
I'm concerned with government-driven, is it because in those countries there are no private sector? My concern is whether, OpenSPP can also be used by private sector service providers to build theirs. Yeah, so, yeah, please.
You want to start?
Yeah, I can go quickly. Yeah, go ahead, Michel.
Please, you
okay.
started.
Yeah, no, definitely. And that's really something that we're exploring now, actually, is like, yeah, so how does the farmer registry be used by the private sector? Because it can also be a way to support the financial, the financing of the farmer registry. So, and the maintenance of it. Because the problem is, yeah, usually countries get money to implement something, but then like, how do you sustain it on the long term? So we are looking at how does the private sector can have a role to support this while staying with privacy, with all the usual problems, and that's actually a study that Michel is doing now on this.
Yeah, I'm gonna just jump quickly, I think, and also respond to Krishan's question. And first of all, Marvin, we need to talk to you because I think you have a lot of things questions that you can answer to us. But I think, yeah, the main question is for us, the main thing is the maintenance of the farmer registry to be updated and constantly updated, right? So I think in most, in the countries that we work in, yes, it's true that there's a massive implication of the public actor, right? So there are public sector programs which are able to be leveraged for this. But I think the role of and I've been trying to incite people in the chats in the different groups, like the main question is what is the interest of the private sector in these farmer registries, right? And how it can really leverage. But also, I think from a government perspective, a lot of the private sector that works with smallholder farmers and agriculturists have a lot of data that they do not share, right? Yeah. And for me, like this whole question about data collection, the main thing, and this is why standardization, like the work that Riyadh is doing, is important, is that we're able to enable multiple sources of data collection. It doesn't matter where the data comes from. It's also not to centralize the data. Everybody can keep their own databases, right? But how we can leverage that so we just have a better picture, because I don't know, if a drought comes, massive flooding comes, and you need to reorient the whole crop cycle because people are going to starve, then this is when it becomes important. Then the last question.
Thank you, Michel. I need to because our time is up and Krishan needs to do some, so thank you all.
Yeah, in fact, so there are a lot of nice words we've heard so far about not centralizing collaboration. It's good to see that you have met up and you want to talk to each other already, and I hope that's what will happen, and that's what the Commonwealth is here for, to be able to bridge these the different people working along DPI in the agricultural sector. And as Ben rightly mentioned in the e-conversation this afternoon, NAgDI is not DPI, but it is an approach to where you can implement DPI but it gives a whole framework that you would be able to apply. Now let's see if I can move to my next slide. Okay, so just to remind you of a few things that are happening. So by all means, do join us in our conversations. As I said, the activity picked up again this afternoon with a few controversial exchanges since yesterday and this morning. So again, I always find that I was asking myself whether it's the era of social media where we have to push each other in conversations rather than promote collaboration. But let's see how the conversation continues. Ben and I are there to moderate and to ask ourselves the questions that I think we should be asking in terms of DPI implementation. So since we've been talking about the World Food Day, and obviously the Commonwealth did not want to compete with World Food Day celebrations, and that's why they're having the launch of the policy guide next week. But keeping in mind that our conversations will start again, will continue, and we will have our final webinar next week, where we'll be looking at exactly this topic of what should we do, since all of us are doing things differently and different circumstances. Do we compete with each other, or do we talk about collaboration and competition? Even if there are people who are, let's say, competing for resources to be able to implement in different countries, in the end, what's the point of competing for resources? We should be collaborating. Yes.
The slide is not moving.
No. Oh, did it not move? What? Okay.
It's still on today's webinar slide. Yeah. Yeah, the same problem, right? It's not moving. Okay, are you there? Okay. We can't hear you. Christian, are you there? Okay, technical problem. So, yeah, so what Christian was saying, if you can hear me, the conversation continues. And next week, Friday, I think we lost him. Next week, Friday, which is going to be the last webinar, we're going to talk about how do we collaborate, going beyond competition, some of the common themes that we are finding among ourselves. So we'll hear from some practical cases, Gates Foundation, GIZ, and Beacon Protocol. How do we pull all this together? And also before, let me see if I can take over the slide from Christian. Yeah. So, okay. So before the Friday webinar last Friday, on Thursday, we are going to launch the policy guide. So if you have not registered, please register for the launch of the policy guide on the 23rd. I'm sure the link has been put in there. If you are in London, you are welcome to come in person, but you need to RSVP. If you are not in London, join remotely and the policy guide will be released. So again, thank you for today. Thank you for all our speakers and those who stayed in all this time. The conversation continues in the D group. Thanks to our partners, especially Wageningen University, Giacomo and Inde and Kutani that are helping us with all this. So once again, take care.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. Welcome to this webinar out of a series being organized by the Commonwealth Secretariat and the Digital Agri Hub based at the University of Wageningen in collaboration with AGRA, Farmerline, and the GIZ DIASCA program initiative. And DIASCA stands for Digital Integration of Agri-Supply Chains Alliance. So this is the fourth webinar we're having in the series. And we've been having this webinar on a Friday afternoon, as well as having an e-conversation during the week. And I was just commenting to the presenters before that it's been good to see more interactions happening on the e-conversations, especially since yesterday and this morning. So we've got a lot of speakers today. As you can see from on the screen, we have Marvin, Tuntufie, we have Jeremy, Michel, Gregorio, and